Spirituality requires an ego death. The journey can be lonely, but you have to shift your mindset. Most people are so scared to stand alone that they'll rather suffer at the hands of people who don't even like them for real. God gave you the playbook to save your life. He sent your ancestors and spirit guides to lead the way. Do the work.
Plants were our first medicine, our connection to the earth's power, used for healing and shaping destinies through root work. These herbs and crystals create a shield, a sacred boundary, keeping negativity away and inviting only positive energy.
Let me be the one to tell you. Most of your great-grandmothers were magical women. She had an altar, but she didn't call it that. Back then, they called it prayer warrior closet or intercession room. She didn't call it Reiki. She called it laying hands. She didn't call it mediumship. She called it prophesying, or I had a dream. She didn't have a potion. She said, drink this tea and you will feel better. There is nothing new under the sun. Just reclaim what she did with more information to guide your path.
Divine all blessed greetings and salutations, honor and respect, honor and respect, honor and respect. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes, brought to you by, empowered by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. We continue to invite you to support us and join us, as well as visit our website for more updates and coming information at www.vodouday.org. Again, at www.voodooday.org. And as the bewitching hour of midnight approaches, the warm swamp air is filled with the throbbing beat of drums, the chant of emotion, wrought voices, the smell of fire, gumbo, whiskey, and boiling cauldrons, and the heightened sense of excitement and passion which accompanies revivals and political rallies. Dark forms sway with the eerie music, and then dance wildly about the leaping flames. Flickering light is reflected on their black, brown, and yellow bodies. The voodoo queen arises from her throne, the embodiment of power and mystery. She calls for the final ingredients to be added to the devil's stew. A live rooster or cat, or possibly a small child. The animal is sacrificed and oaths are sworn in its blood. Then procuring a large snake from a decorated box on the altar, the queen leads her faithful court through the secret prayers and rituals invoking the diabolical voodoo spirit embodied in this serpent. The writhing snake is used as an oracle or itself sacrificed. Awful voodoo powers are imbued in the brew from the steaming cauldron and acquired in the form of charms known as gree-gree for the working of good or evil. Dancing and shouting continue at an increased pace. Some of the ecstatic worshipers begin foaming at the mouth, others having worked themselves into a state of frenzy, stuck to the earth, unconscious. At midnight, there is a piercing scream as the naked voodoos race into the lake to swim or into the bushes to pursue further orgies. These savage rites will continue unabated until the dawn of St. John's Day. Such is the account of voodoo in a post-Civil War New Orleans era, narrated in innumerable works by Lyle Saxton, Robert Tallant, Henry C. Calistianos, Herbert Asbury, Alcee Fortier, George Washington Cable, and Charles Dudley Warner, all liars about the demonstration of voodoo seen in New Orleans. Continual reiterations in guidebooks, newspapers, magazines, and old history books has endowed these and other New Orleans voodoo stories with an aura of truth. The truth, however, has been embellished with legend, and much like that which surrounds John Lafitte, Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and Crispus Attucks, voodoo did exist in New Orleans. In some of its facets, it probably still exists. The cult undoubtedly possessed many black and more than a few white adherents. The true nature of voodoo activity should interest both scholars and the general public because the unusual beliefs and practices of the voodoo provide fascinating insights into a little known segment of society. And given the secretive and mysterious nature of voodoo activities, reliable documentation is indeed minimal. However, this fact did not deter authors cited above from romanticizing and mythologicizing and outright lying about voodoo for popular consumption. And in the ensuing pages, an attempt is made to separate such voodoo folklore from the few historical incidents which can be documented by newspaper sources. The word voodoo is spelled and defined in several ways. Certainly here in Louisiana, we spell voodoo with four O's, Voodoo. George Washington Cable called it the name of an imaginary being of vast supernatural powers, residing in the form of a harmless snake. A broader definition of the term is the belief in fetishes, which manifests the great powers of such a diabolical spirit or negative being. Those who worship this mysterious spiritual purporting or believe in these fetishes are themselves labeled voodoos. They wish to use the power of a fetish known as gree to bring good fortune to themselves and harm to their enemies. And in common usage as a noun, objective, adjective, or a verb, voodoo refers to, according to this author, the black magic historically associated with Negroes in the West Indies or in the deep South regions of this country. The origins of voodoo, as well as its practice, remain shrouded in mystery. The word itself has been variously credited by researchers as having both African and French or European origins. Voodoo, as used by the Ewe of West Africa, means fear of the gods. And Voudon in Dahomey, West Africa, is purportedly a name for all deities. In France, Vaudois refers to a witch, Vaudois, refers to a witch, a follower of Peter Valdo. A white Southern sociologist in Puckett has found many close relationships between Southern Negro folklore, superstitions, language and customs, and their counterparts in West Africa. However, Puckett concluded that this was often considered a relic of African heathenism, was in 4 cases out of 5 European dogma. Many scholars have noted the use of Roman Catholic saints and liturgies in voodoo worship. Such voodoo symbols as black cats, serpents, and the color red can be traced to both European and African motifs, signifying, respectively, evil, the devil, and blood, sin, sacrifice, and above all things, harlotry. Voodoo is probably a complex mixture of the superstitions held by the poor and uneducated, the few bits of African culture which survived the black man's traumatic immigration to the New World, and the trappings of French folklore and Roman Catholic worship. Voodoo is most commonly associated with the Negroes in French outposts in the New World, especially Haiti, to a lesser extent, Martinique and Louisiana. And after existing in New Orleans for several decades, the cult increased about 1800 when many Haitian and West Indian blacks who were already acquainted with it were brought as slaves to Louisiana. The hexes, secret revenges, and emotional outpourings of voodoo were readily incorporated into the system of slavery and caste, which existed in the antebellum South. Voodoo appealed to superstitious blacks, both slave and free, who were denied most educational and religious opportunities, severely restricted in their overt expressions of violence, and limited in their means of retribution for the many injustices that they suffered. The heyday of voodoo in the United States was probably in pre Civil War New Orleans, according to this author. But for here, there were numerous West Indian Negroes, a relatively large and unsupervised population of slaves, and free men of color, a wide open, freewheeling atmosphere, and the French Catholic influences so frequently associated with voodoo. And this document, Voodoo in New Orleans by Blake Touchstone, Louisiana History, the Journal of Louisiana's Historical Association, said to be documented in a volume dated 1972. But I believe many of the references suggested in this reading are much older than that. They certainly ride on many of the misbeliefs and untruths and fantasy uh, created about voodoo from the very beginning. And certainly the further back in time that we go, not just to Haitian Revolution, but predating the Haitian Revolution and many of the activities that we've already discussed in previous incarnations of this podcast. In Jamaica, for example, the horror stories of rebellion, uprising at the hands of Akan and opium men, and certainly the usage of Black superstition or voodoo circulated here in the Deep South, creating the environment in which many of us were, if not all of us, free and enslaved, were forced to endure. The Black Codes is a reference to that, or a response even to some of that activity. And I'm certainly thankful and appreciative to my live chat participants. Greetings to you, Nina Lloyd. Peace and blessings, Ray Alexander. Thank you so much for joining us again. S. Marie, thank you so much for your continued support and participation. And beloved Daniel Neal, community member and participant, we certainly do appreciate you. And as I unmute the mics of my beloved co-host, my first priest, my wild man, right-hand man, Joshua Nylan Tanner, Brother Tanner, our beloved Elder Reggie, known on this platform as Green Soap, and leader of Shrine of the White Cloth, and our beloved Queen Mother, Sister Toni Martinez. And you all are certainly free to come on in at liberty. We continue to fight the miseducation in the lives about voodoo, even to this day, or even just the lack of situational awareness. We've heard both El Reggie and Sister Toni different very voodoo-related scenarios that just weren't called that back then, where the language had not only been demonized, but had been secreted away. And so we use other coded language to reference spiritual practice, spiritual phenomenon, if you will. Greetings, Queen Mother.
Greetings, everyone in the listening audience. When you was reading the part about, I think I read that before, and it was a reporter, a white reporter. I read more in depth who called himself going to watch a St. John's night voodoo ceremony, and so much of it was exaggerated, and he wasn't the only one. I think those are the accounts that Hollywood used, the sensationalized account, and the lies, because during those days they still wanted to make Black people to be savages and to be doing something that make you grab your pearls. And they did stuff for readers, like people on TikTok and Facebook do sensational stuff today for likes. It's all about how many people is seeing this, and nobody was going to want to hear the true story, which wasn't really that fascinating to anyone else unless you were actually participating in it. So they made up lies and sensationalized it like a small child or a live cat or small dog. And
But you know,
they did a chicken, they saw a baby. You know
mhm.
what I'm saying? Because everybody most at that time was killing chickens. That's what you ate.
But
Nothing
even
fabulous.
during the war between the states, the Union Army occupied New Orleans and attempted to curtail voodoo activities specifically. On the evening of July 30, 1863, Special Officer Long investigated a suspicious meeting on Murray Street, a few blocks over from where I am now. And when he and some other officers entered the building, he found about, according to him now, and this is a military officer, Special Officer Long, when he and some other officers entered the building, he found about 40 naked women, all colored except two, who were dancing the voodoo dance and performing rites and incantations pertaining to that ancient African superstition, voodooism. And in the center of the room, there was a vessel filled with a motley mixture. According to him, seminal fluid, character, ornamented with curious, unnameable substances. From the vessel, a number of burning candles protruded, and around these lights, the voodoo sisters danced. And on a little furnace in the corner of the room, strange spices burned, giving forth exhilarating perfumes. The object of the meeting, as far as he could ascertain, and what was ascertained by the police, was the bringing down of heaven's vengeance on those who had in any manner fortified their goodwill or forfeited their goodwill. And as soon as the police entered, there was such great scattering of the new sisterhood, notwithstanding which about 20, according to the article, were arrested. So again, the demonization predated Hollywood, predated popular film, and even some of the more sensationalized book authors of the early 19th, 20th century. This was a persistent message driven into the heads of the populace since before the Haitian Revolution. And what say
Yeah,
you, Elder Reggie?
that's why I said Hollywood must have studied those writings when they
Mm-hmm.
got ready to put on their movies to make them sensational lies and full of lies and have people all confused about what voodoo really is. I know it all predated Hollywood. Hollywood didn't go for the truth. They went for the sensation of
Mm-hmm.
those authors and newspaper articles and so forth.
That's right.
So,
Elder Reggie?
Elder Reggie, you out there?
Brother Joshua.
Good day, everybody. Yep, I'm at.
Now.
Go ahead, Elder. Go ahead, Elder.
Thank you, Doctor. Divine Prince, Sister Toni, and collective audience, thanks. And I appreciate the show tonight. There's as Divine Prince was reading, there's a word I like to introduce and try to build on it somewhat when we are dealing with voodoo. And that word is called grafting. grafting. And I went to Google just to hit on it right quick. The process requires creating a wound on one plant and inserting the other plant tissue into it, ensuring the wound is protected until it heals. Grafting can also be used to change a tree from an old variety to a new one, adapting it to better solid climate condition. And the way that is used in voodoo, everything you do is grafting. If you're going to use a plant to heal somebody, you want to insert verbiage into that plant of the client, because the plant and the spirit with the plant is the one that's going to be doing the healing. So as was able to travel to different fetish markets throughout Benin and Togo, and it's all about buying certain plants, certain animals, certain stones to graft that into what you are trying to get accomplished. And even when voodoo was introduced, as Divine Prince say, before the Haitian Revolution, after the revolution, even modern times, you still at the core of grafting energies. And I just wanted to add that because that does layer voodoo.
You're right. You're right, Elder Reggie. That does. Yes, it does. And I must say that with my experience with voodoo from my big chief Divine Prince, since we've met back 8 years ago, that's what the core of it has been the representation of the practice, what we do, the ceremonies. And I could understand how in those days of the Haitian Revolution and in terms of the enslavement during the Black Codes and the suppression of legal gatherings and being unable to do certain things, they still found ways to kind of do that grafting in private. And they had to mask it by language, mask it by what they said. They couldn't call it what it was. They kind of, like how we do nowadays. We have we come up with different lingos. We come up with different slang terms for things that we're doing. We call it this, we call it that. Just so people, so the listening ear that's outside of the community doesn't really understand what's happening. But also making sure that it's clear to the community. The community knows, but that's just how we cultivated, and I think that's how we survived and still surviving to this day in that way. But I know now we're more in a search of. I can speak of. I think now with the sensational propagation of things, I think that even with the movie centers, people are now and the things that's happening and around that, and like just the events that's occurring now. I think people are really trying to get down to the nitty gritty of it and want to hear the pure language of it, but it's something that has evolved throughout time, and was preserved by the people who represent it, and throughout time in different ways. And it takes study, it takes research, it takes a navigation, and it takes a multilingual approach in a way to grasp it all.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, Brother Joshua. And Divine Prince can speak to stones. He's an expert with stones. But there's one that's coming to my mind. It's called, I think it's black obsidian. So let's say I go to a lapidary and I buy a black obsidian. So what I'm saying, when I purchase this stone, I need to grab my energies into the stone as a point of protection, because black obsidian is known for protection. So once I grab my energy inside the stone or to the stone, then it is protecting me as I move forward throughout my day. And now we're dealing with voodoo, which is constantly grafting or using what's around you to help you overcome your circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Simply put, Elder Reggie, that's right on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how do we explain, the reports of the nudism? Do we accept that this was actually a true event that these police officers witnessed and documented, or do we attribute it to sensationalism?
Divine
I
Prince.
attribute it to sensationalism myself. Because when they say 40, I say it might have been 20 women. When they say nude, they might have had on peasant shirts that didn't cover a lot of flesh as was covered in those days, or they may have been dancing with their skirts raised. I don't believe nothing they say, actually. And every time they say it was this, I take it down and lower the number of people in attendance and everything else.
You raised a good point, Sister Toni. There's an author, and I have like 3 of his books. Robert Talent. He's one of the first ones to sort of start writing about Marie Laveau, even though there's writings of timestamp priorities from that day when she lived. But he was one of the ones in the 50s start writing about her and sensationalizing it, putting a lot of myth to things that just was not true. And so they had a way of hyperboling stuff to still make people of color look bad. And the military, the police at that time, also the newspapers at that time, they was looking for people to read their newspaper to sell things. Everything was always about selling something. And so the more sensationalized you can bring to a subject, then that's what they was doing. Now, I believe there was some truth in the matter that an event happened when the soldier came up on it, but he embellished it.
Most definitely, just like they embellished the St. John ceremony. They probably had a chicken that they sacrificed, and that chicken went to being a baby, because during those times, a lot of people was cutting the heads off of chickens. That's how they dressed them to eat them. But that wasn't selling no newspapers.
Right.
That wasn't selling newspapers, but sacrificing a small child, that would sell newspapers.
Yes.
Chicken fights happen probably on a regular basis. Chickens being slaughtered everywhere.
Yes. I mean, even during Jim Crow era, they seen a lot of black people as involved in cannibalism, even though we knew that was not the truth, but that was the narrative at that time. But no one speak on how they was taking black babies and feeding them to alligators. Is that myth or is that real? Because there was postcards and there was writings around that.
Oh no, that was real. My daddy told me about that, and my dad and them used to take their small brother named Adolf. My daddy had 12 brothers. He was the oldest ones. They would take him and tie a rope around him and throw him in the bayou and pull him back in as soon as the alligator came out. And I asked him in my child, why was y'all doing that to your own brother? He said, because that's the way it was done. All the white people did it like that, and they got alligators. So we was looking for something to eat, so we tied it around Adolf to get an alligator to come out. And that had to be the early 1900s, because my daddy was the oldest, and he was born in 1900. And Adolf couldn't, being a baby, it was 11 under him. So say if she had steps one every year, that still put it down to 1911. If he was 2 or 3 years old, that put it back down to 1915. They still was doing that practice.
Wow,
but I found out a lot of people, like our president, they project what they do onto other people.
Yeah.
Like to throw it off of them. Don't look at me, look at them. They did it. Now, we do know from history and people that tell the truth of history of several cases in the 1800s where Caucasians did commit cannibalism, and it's recorded in history, actual history. One was the Donner Party. Remember now, they would get in them stagecoach, those wagon trains, and get lost and get caught in the wrong winter and all kind of stuff that they wasn't prepared for. I mean, it's a couple more besides the Donner Party, but I have yet historical verification of any group of blacks committing cannibalism. And even in modern history of serial killers and all this other stuff, I never ran across one black person who did it. They might have been a serial killer. They might have been a rapist or whatever and killed the women, but I don't see no account of them eating like Jeffrey Dahmer, Albert Fish, and several others have done, including the guy in the French Quarter who killed his girlfriend right after Katrina. When the police got up to his apartment over the voodoo shop.
We got to think about the lynchings too now. Those lynchings, but not just blacks being hung by trees. We had a lot going on, other things and other activities happening before that happened.
They found her remains, some of them still on the stove in the pot.
Yep.
So it's projecting off all of this stuff, projecting off of themselves onto black people.
Yeah. It's just like when you was in kindergarten, someone passed gas. Oh, that wasn't me.
That was Sally, that was Byron, or that was Joey. It wasn't me. They want to draw the attention away from them and do it. And I find that the current president does that often.
Yeah.
He projects stuff that historically we know he does and projects that onto other people. And throughout history, we find that
Adam. Yep.
what they tried to put
Toni,
on
just a
us.
little
Huh?
What I wanted to say, just a little tidbit on that situation. In the French quarters, of course, then I was still active with the fire department, and I was on the unit that made that first rollout there. I couldn't even go across the sill of that door. I couldn't. I don't know why. The energy was just so heavy. I couldn't go across the sill of the door, so I didn't go across the sill of that door. But what you're speaking of really did happen. Yes.
Yeah, he said, some demon had got into him. So, I mean, who knows? They calling out stuff and you all over a voodoo shop and you doing all kind of things because they will do things to call out people. People got to realize when you talk and you simple talk, you have to be careful what you say because you casting spells with your words. That's why you're not never supposed to wish nothing bad on nobody.
Or on yourself.
Well, that made me think about when children used to catch a whipping back in the day, and it was so prevalent till comedians used it when your mama would whip them and how you would cry and talk under your breath once the whipping was over. And the child would say, I wish you die. I wish your hair fall out. I wish your beans burn. But it was funny, but saying things like that, I mean, I'm quite sure some children had did that and their mother died prematurely. Imagine how they felt thinking, I wish that upon my mama. I said, I wish she died, and she did. Imagine how that affected to this day that person because nobody told them don't ever say that about your siblings or whatever. I know I've heard my kids saying stuff about the other. I wish you get hit by a car. Don't say that about your brother. Don't say that. Take it back.
Yeah,
Mm.
I remember my grandmother used to pop us in the mouth if we'd said anything like that.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm like, what you said, boy? Come over here. And I'm like, man, I kept my mouth shut though. I ain't that. I was not about to do that. I'm very careful with my words to this day because of that.
Yes, yes.
I always hear about the Haitians that came over after the Haitian Revolution, which was a large amount. But no
Mhm.
one never talks about the 500 Haitians that came here
Mhm.
to fight in the Spanish American War before then.
Yeah, I know.
Mm.
And what influence that they have on 500 men is a lot of men to come into an area with a lot of beautiful women
Mhm.
and not
Oh, yeah.
leave nothing behind and not stay behind themselves.
True.
So
Mm.
what did they contribute before the big Haitian influx? All the years before that, when they came here to fight.
True.
Yeah, you raise a good point, Sister Toni. I mean, from the deep dive in history I've done, I just haven't ran across or read anything that they may have left behind. They may
But
have,
I'm
but
just thinking, humanly, they came here, men, they came with they introducing their spiritual practices to the people that were surrounding them, just
Mhm.
like they introduced their food when they came here. We know they ate different foods. When they came here, they cooked some of their own food or whatever,
Yeah.
and they brought their own spiritual practices. They prayed and whatever. And our people saw this, and if they stayed amongst our people might have picked up on some of that, what they was doing, like we still do today.
True.
I
yeah,
mean,
you
'cause
right.
I know living uptown amongst Spanish speaking people and English speaking people, we came up with a language we call Spanglish, because we could speak a sentence that contained both Spanish words and English words fluently to the point where the children thoroughly understood what we were saying.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we just call that Spanglish. And that's how being in close proximity with people that you pick up on stuff that easily without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But our
yeah.
time
So,
is running out, and I like Elder Reggie to close us out. Elder Reggie.
yes, thanks, Sister Toni. Thanks again, Divine Prince, for a good show, Brother Joshua, for your wisdom and our collective chat. They're busy little campers in that chat, but we appreciate and love them. Two announcements before I close out. August 15, 10 a.m., Esplanade Avenue at Dauphine Street. We're doing the unveiling of the 1866 Freeman's March, marker unveiling. And I dub it as the first civil rights march in American history for the right to vote. And so we'll be doing that unveiling. And the second announcement is August 23rd. We're doing a practitioner collective prayer for healing of the country, the nation, and try to turn some of this stuff around. Location will be coming forward. At this time, I don't quite have that address. But stay tuned as we continue to build each night, and we'll get that information to you. But with that, I say, lest we forget, the spiritual medicine of voodoo brings healing and relief from the shackles of slavery that binds the master and the slave to the same chain of social division. We march along. We continue to fight. With that, I say, Ashe. We love you guys. Peace, blessing. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Let me be the one to tell you. Most of your great-grandmothers were magical women. She had an altar, but she didn't call it that. Back then, they called it prayer warrior closet or intercession room. She didn't call it Reiki. She called it laying hands. She didn't call it mediumship. She called it prophesying, or I had a dream. She didn't have a potion. She said, drink this tea and you will feel better. There is nothing new under the sun. Just reclaim what she did with more information to guide your path.
In the jewelry, chain was magic, never had it in public. Late reaction, 50K to cousins, post the caption. Pray none of my enemies hold me captive. I grieve different.
Please, allow me to show you something.
They say I'm crazy and that might be true. I got this right in my DNA, yet I'm coming for you. It's time we turn the tables, flip these motherfuckers on you. I wanna see you hanging from trees. It's time you pay for your dirt and your showtime. You created the monster, you created the beast. Now all this savagery you just gon' reap. I'm coming home, daddy, to the plantation, and I'm taking the lives of everybody, including the children, on some Nat Turner. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. I met my girl Harriet at the gate. If you wanna know how she doing, yeah, she's straight. But she had one question: when we gon' get up? All that talking tough, yeah, we don't walk it tough. She got it locked and loaded, got that piece up on her side. She looked me in my eyes and said, Mitch, you ready to ride? Moving forward, you gotta use both eyes. Watch your front and watch your back. Keep your hands up on your gas. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. He sit at the table, but he don't order no bacon. He greet me in those words, assalamu alaikum. Got them glasses on his face and them waves in his head. He go by the name of Detroit Red. He looks me in my eye and says, you only get one try. Know that your biggest opposition will come from the inside. I know you wanna love them all, but don't even try, because they'll smile up in your face while plotting your demise. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. We are the children of the ancestors that weren't part of bitch.